Good morning to you. Welcome to today's intelligence briefing.
Good morning.
We are here to provide a comprehensive, impartial examination of the primary source material regarding current events.
Both within our nation and across the globe.
Precisely. This broadcast is brought to you by our sponsor, ProWave AI, Powering Intelligence.
Furthermore, the analysis you are about to hear is generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application.
Before we commence our primary situational analysis, we will register the official briefing details for the historical record.
Of course.
Briefing title: The New Space Race Strategic Competition Beyond Earth. Domain Space Date: 13 March 2026.
It is essential to understand the tools at your disposal today. Stylo News, which powered the foundation of this briefing, is the consumer-facing version of the Stylo Intel Ops software.
That architecture being designed specifically for enterprise operations, correct?
Correct. It actively supports government, military, and corporate entities. Therefore, you, the listener, currently have unique access to a mechanism designed to support global decision-makers at the highest strategic levels.
And our mission for this briefing is clear and resolute.
We will impartially analyze the primary patterns of global space events over the past 2 weeks.
We will identify the key decision makers, examine their proposed courses of action, and outline the upcoming events that demand your attention in the near term.
We begin our report at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The facts concerning NASA's Artemis II mission indicate a significant technical hurdle has been encountered and subsequently managed.
This occurred during standard wet dress rehearsal procedures, I understand. A helium flow issue was detected.
Yes. To put that in perspective for you, conducting a wet dress rehearsal is essentially loading the rocket with its highly combustible fuel and counting down to T-0, stopping just short of actually lighting the match.
It is a critical stress test of the vehicle's systems.
Indeed. And during this critical test, engineers identified a dislodged seal within the launch vehicle stage adapter of the Space Launch System, or SLS rocket.
A highly sensitive component. The parameters of this anomaly necessitated a complete rollback, did they not?
They did. Imagine carefully transporting a 30-story skyscraper. The 322-foot launch vehicle was meticulously transported from Launch Pad 39B back to the vehicle assembly building.
For internal inspection and repair.
Correct.
Our latest intelligence confirms that the necessary resolutions have been implemented. The compromised seal has been addressed.
And the internal batteries, which were drained by the delay, have been completely replaced.
Consequently, NASA is now targeting an April 2026 launch window for this mission,
which is programmed to be a 10-day crewed orbit of the moon.
But looking beyond the mechanics, let us examine the perspective of the primary decision-maker here. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman has drawn a hard line in the sand regarding these delays.
He is prioritizing mission safety over any strict adherence to scheduling.
That is correct. Administrator Isaacman has publicly advocated for a methodical rebuilding of NASA's institutional muscle memory, as he terms it.
He is drawing a direct comparison to the rigorous incremental testing protocols utilized during the Apollo era in the 1960s and 70s.
The agency has not executed a crewed lunar mission since Apollo 17 in 1972.
You simply cannot dust off 50-year-old operational manuals and expect flawless execution with entirely new, immensely complex hardware.
This delay is viewed internally not as a failure, but as a necessary re-education of the ground and flight teams.
A review of global source coverage reveals detailed, factual reporting on these developments. Publications such as Discover Magazine and Noticias R7 have provided comprehensive analyses of the technical repairs.
Concurrently, an aggregation of social media sentiment indicates a predominant public reaction characterized by profound relief.
The consensus is gratitude that the technical fault was identified safely on the ground, coupled with sustained anticipation for the impending launch.
For you, the listener, understanding this methodical approach is critical. It underscores the operational reality that executing the first crewed lunar orbit in over half a century demands an uncompromising commitment to human safety over public relations.
However, while the Artemis II vehicle prepares to return to the pad, the broader architecture it belongs to is undergoing a seismic shift.
We turn our attention now to a strategic overhaul of the United States space program.
NASA has formally announced a comprehensive restructuring of the Artemis initiative.
This pivot is driven by two primary factors: fiscal responsibility and a demand for operational pragmatism.
The most significant course of action resulting from this restructuring is the official termination of the Boeing-led Exploration Upper Stage, or EUS, project.
To clarify the gravity of this for the listener, why abandon a project of this massive magnitude?
The termination of the EUS is a monumental admission regarding the current state of aerospace engineering. This project was in development for a decade.
And received approximately $3.5 billion in federal funding.
Yet, rather than succumb to the sunk cost fallacy, the agency is acknowledging that nimble commercial technology has simply outpaced traditional government engineering cycles.
So NASA is now pivoting to commercial alternatives that are currently viable and ready for integration.
Specifically, United Launch Alliance's Centaur V and Blue Origin's BE-3U upper stages.
This hardware adjustment fundamentally alters the mission sequence moving forward.
Artemis III, initially slated to be the triumphant return of humans to the lunar surface, is now retargeted for 2027 as a low Earth orbit test mission.
Its revised objective will be to practice complex docking procedures with commercial lunar landers in the relative safety of Earth's orbit.
Consequently, the first human lunar landing has been deferred to the Artemis IV mission, which is currently scheduled for 2028.
In examining the perspectives of policy and government decision-makers regarding this timeline, it is our duty to report the following directives impartially.
We note that we do not endorse any political viewpoints, but merely convey the facts as they are recorded in the original source material.
United States President Donald Trump has issued executive orders that reprioritize a rapid return to the moon by that 2028 deadline.
This directive intentionally defers previously planned Mars missions in order to solidly assert American leadership in the lunar domain first.
Concurrently, legislative actions are being mobilized in the legislative branch. A bipartisan United States Senate committee, led jointly by Senators Ted Cruz and Rhea Cantwell, is advancing legislation focused on the orbital domain.
Their objective is twofold. First, to extend the operational life of the International Space Station to 2032, preventing a gap in low Earth orbit presence.
And simultaneously mandating the establishment of a permanent lunar base.
Again, we report these legislative maneuvers strictly as matters of factual record, illustrating the unified government push toward lunar infrastructure.
Analyzing the sentiment across our curated sources, we observe starkly distinct interpretations of this architectural shift.
The technology publication Ars Technica adopted a highly critical stance. They explicitly referred to the canceled $3.5 billion exploration upper stage project as a political boondoggle,
suggesting it was a program kept alive for regional job security rather than engineering necessity.
Conversely, the Japanese publication Wired DJP framed the broader program restructuring through a historical lens.
They view it as a prudent return to a cautious, Apollo-style phased exploration strategy, prioritizing stepping stones over giant leaps.
This restructuring naturally accelerates the integration of commercial entities into the national framework.
Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the space economy. With NASA stepping back from building certain hardware components, we observe a rapidly expanding role for the private sector.
Characterized by highly efficient and frequent launch cadences, the primary decision-maker in the commercial sphere remains SpaceX, under the direction of Elon Musk.
The factual record demonstrates an unprecedented pace of operations. SpaceX successfully launched 25 Starlink satellites from Vandenberg Space Force Base on the 1st of March.
Deploying 24 satellites in a single afternoon was once the work of a decade. It is now a routine Tuesday.
Furthermore, the organization is advancing rapidly with Starship version 3. The highly anticipated Flight 12 test, originating from Boca Chica, Texas, is classified as imminent.
The strategic vision articulated by SpaceX extends far beyond simply acting as a delivery service for orbital payloads. They are actively floating proposals for long-term commercial endeavors.
Most notably, they have detailed the concept of a permanent lunar settlement designated as Moon City.
Additionally, and perhaps more surprisingly, they are proposing the utilization of the orbital vacuum for space-based artificial intelligence data centers.
This is a particularly fascinating development. It is presented as a potential solution to the severe terrestrial power scaling challenges currently facing the AI industry.
If we might offer an analogy to you, our listener, to clarify this concept, think of the current artificial intelligence boom as a massive industrial locomotive rapidly running out of coal here on Earth.
These massive AI server farms require staggering amounts of electricity to run, and equally staggering amounts of water and power to keep cool.
Space, however, offers a solution to both. It provides perpetual, unfiltered solar energy to power the servers.
And the ultimate deep freeze cooling system, the vacuum of orbit itself.
a highly accurate assessment of the proposed mechanics. It is also imperative to recognize the actions of their primary commercial competitor in this rapidly expanding sector.
Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos, is actively competing for these highly lucrative NASA lunar contracts.
They are aggressively positioning their New Glenn heavy lift rocket and their Blue Moon lander as the definitive, reliable alternatives to the SpaceX architecture.
Our intelligence gathering on social media and source sentiment regarding this private sector expansion reveals highly specific metrics.
Sentiment is categorized as largely positive neutral, with approximately 80% of the discourse registering as optimistic regarding private spaceflight.
The public predominantly views SpaceX as a highly innovative entity pushing the boundaries of what is possible.
Sources such as The Federalist draw a sharp contrast here, utilizing this commercial agility to issue critiques against what they perceive as the bureaucratic slowness of traditional government agencies.
While the United States recalibrates its domestic and commercial architecture, the international arena is moving with distinct urgency.
This delay in the American timeline has created a strategic window, and international space administrations are actively stepping through it.
We look now to the Chinese National Space Administration, or CNSA. The decision-makers within China are maintaining a firm, publicly stated target of 2030 for a crewed lunar landing.
And their technical progress is highly measurable. They have successfully concluded critical tests on the Long March 10 launch vehicle and the Mengzhu spacecraft,
Signaling that their timeline is not merely aspirational, but operational.
strategic analysis indicates that the CNSA views the recent delays and restructuring in NASA's Artemis program as a definitive strategic opening.
Their explicit stated goal is to establish a dominant presence at the lunar South Pole. Furthermore, they are not acting alone.
They are actively constructing a geopolitical coalition, formally inviting international partners, such as Pakistan, to integrate into their lunar infrastructure efforts and research stations.
The perspectives of traditional United States allies must also be factored into this global equation.
Agencies including the Canadian Space Agency, the European Space Agency, and Japan's JXA are monitoring these developments closely.
And their reactions are intrinsically tied to American progress.
These allied agencies express cautious support for NASA's program restructuring, understanding the need for safety and commercial integration.
However, their internal planning is highly dependent on NASA's scheduling. For instance, Canada's vital contribution of the Canadarm3 robotics system.
As well as the flight assignment of Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen on Artemis II.
Both are entirely reliant on NASA maintaining its revised timeline. Any further American delays create a domino effect for international partners.
Let us clarify for you why the lunar South Pole is the primary focal point of this intense international competition.
Despite the geopolitical friction, our sources indicate a broad, common viewpoint shared by all spacefaring nations.
There is universal agreement on the paramount strategic value of this specific region. This consensus is driven by two confirmed resources.
First, the presence of water ice reserves. This is critical for sustaining human life support and can be broken down into hydrogen and oxygen for rocket propellant.
And second, substantial deposits of helium-3.
Helium-3 is the resource that elevates this from a mission of exploration to a mission of economics.
It is theorized to be a highly efficient fuel for future nuclear fusion reactors.
To put the value of helium-3 in perspective, a single space shuttle payload of this rare isotope could theoretically power the entire United States for a year through clean nuclear fusion.
It effectively turns the dark craters of the lunar South Pole into the most valuable undeveloped real estate in the solar system.
That is why the timeline to arrive there first is of such critical national interest to multiple global superpowers.
Returning our focus closer to Earth, it is vital to brief you on the outlook for Mars and low Earth orbit operations.
NASA remains fully committed to its obligations in low Earth orbit, ensuring the continuous presence of humanity off-world.
The agency has officially announced media accreditation for the upcoming Northrop Grumman CRS-24 resupply mission to the International Space Station.
That launch is firmly scheduled for April 8, 2026.
Regarding deeper space exploration, we are documenting a phenomenon that aerospace experts are currently terming the Mars Gap.
Because crewed missions to the Martian surface have been intentionally deferred by United States policy directives to prioritize the Moon, commercial entities are stepping into the void to maintain scientific momentum.
Notably, Rocket Lab's Escapade probes are currently in transit. Their mission is to study the magnetosphere of Mars, with an anticipated arrival date of September 2027.
For clarity, the magnetosphere is essentially the magnetic force field surrounding a planet that protects it from harsh solar radiation.
Understanding how Mars lost its magnetosphere, and consequently its atmosphere and surface water, is critical before sending human crews to the surface.
However, operations concerning Mars are not without significant internal friction. Our sources, specifically Ars Technica, report an ongoing, heated internal debate at NASA regarding the upcoming Mars Telecommunications Network contract.
The intelligence suggests NASA is currently considering a directive to deprioritize scientific payloads on this specific mission in order to drastically reduce schedule risks.
And ensure the communication satellites are deployed on time.
This scenario perfectly encapsulates the constant inherent tension between the desire for pure scientific discovery and the harsh logistical realities of building interplanetary infrastructure.
Do you delay the network to gather more data on the launch? Or do you fly a simpler mission to ensure you have a functioning switchboard in orbit before you send humans?
It is a complex operational dilemma.
To conclude the situational analysis of this briefing, we summarize the most likely events that you should monitor in the coming weeks as these narratives develop.
First, the imminent SpaceX Starship version 3 orbital flight test from Texas, which will test the very hardware NASA relies on.
Second, the final fueling rehearsals and system checks for the Artemis II launch vehicle in Florida.
And third, the scheduled launch of the ISS resupply mission on April the 8th.
Before we conclude today's intelligence briefing, it is necessary to reiterate the capabilities of the system that generated this report.
Stylo News is a mobile and computer application available for you to download. It empowers you to customize your own personal intelligence-style briefs tailored to your specific areas of interest.
The application utilizes advanced artificial intelligence to translate and analyze information from over 250 traditional news sources.
As well as the Platform X in over 20 languages. It distills this global data into actionable insight in less than 60 seconds.
You are directed to subscribe for on-demand, AI-powered news at www.stylonews.com.
As we close the ledger on today's facts, we leave you with a final provocative thought to consider. We have reported today on private corporations proposing the deployment of artificial intelligence data centers in orbital space.
And rival nation-states actively racing to extract helium-3 from the lunar South Pole to power the Earth.
The technological capabilities are advancing rapidly, yet a critical systemic question remains entirely unanswered. Who, precisely, will establish and enforce the regulatory frameworks for these multi-trillion-dollar off-world economies?
And furthermore, will our terrestrial laws have any jurisdiction or application in the vacuum of space, or will it be an unregulated frontier?
And scene. Okay, dropping the anchor voice.
Wow. Stepping out of the 1960s newsroom for a second is actually wild to think about what we just covered.
I know, right? Even while trying to deliver that as deadpan as possible, the sheer magnitude of these facts is it's staggering.
It truly is. The scale of these engineering leaps and the massive geopolitical shifts happening right over our heads are monumental.
It is a genuine pivot point in human history. I mean, we're watching it happen live.
Right. Like, we're literally talking about building permanent cities on the moon, mining resources that could power the globe, and putting massive server farms in orbit to solve the AI energy crisis.
Yeah, it is not science fiction in a paperback novel anymore. It is just the Tuesday morning news.
Exactly. I want to say a massive thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive today and indulging us in our little retro broadcast experiment.
We really hope it provided a clear, objective, and comprehensive view of a very complex and rapidly evolving situation.
Absolutely. Remember, if there's a topic, a trend, or a massive global event you want us to unpack in a future deep dive, reach out and let us know.
We love digging into the sources you care about, finding those fascinating connections, and sharing them with you.
And don't forget to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms to stay ahead of the curve. Until next time, stay insanely curious.